I don't think that we've ever seen a company that got to these levels that still had that, inquisitive, optimistic, change the world type of founder mentality since we had Steve Jobs at Apple. I think that's the best analogy I can come up with.
Is there any other company that's achieved this level of scale and size that still thinks that way on a daily basis? You said Apple, but Apple's still such a machine and they're doing things so methodically, it doesn't feel like they're changing the world anymore. They just impact the world. Tesla seemingly is still changing and disrupting on a daily basis.
Yes, they are. And what's Tesla's daily disruption for today? Well, today they just produced their 20 millionth 4680 cell just 4 months after making their 10 millionth 4680 cell. And that puts them on a pace of about 85,000 cells a day, which is enough for 650 Cybertrucks per day already. What we're watching today is an ultra bullish discussion with Andy Swan covering Tesla's lead in affordability and AI. This guy came prepared with facts and he is not afraid to share them. Let's watch.
You came to us with the idea of Tesla today, so I'm excited to hear what you guys are talking about. What do you have for our viewers in Tesla?
We just have to say that Tesla looks to be firing on all cylinders, and there's really one big reason for that, and that is they've gotten the price of the vehicles down to kind of no-brainer levels from a competitive standpoint. They've got the base Model 3 sedan now is at $39,000 or under $39,000. All of a sudden, what 4 or 5 years ago was a luxury kind of neat to have gimmicky type of thing to own a Tesla, and it was very expensive, is now right there on par with buying a Toyota Corolla. And who would have thought that we could get there? You can see the drastic price cuts that Tesla has been able to put out there. Really matches up really nicely with the cost of ownership. Interest rates have gone up considerably, so leasing or purchasing a car on a loan has gotten significantly more expensive. And so what Tesla has done is combated that through price cuts. And I think they're going to be able to maintain their margins while they do that.
He said Tesla's firing on all cylinders. That is not the best metaphor for an EV maker. But Andy is right about car loans, as bankers are becoming extremely stingy as defaults on car loans are on the rise. They are now above pre-pandemic levels of over 2%. People are not making their car payments and the banks are having to repossess all of these expensive EVs. So Tesla responds by cutting prices because advertisements are not going to help people make these expensive payments.
Web visits to Tesla.com are up 59% year over year to all-time highs. This is a massive, massive move from a company that gets most of its purchases through online channels, especially Tesla.com. So seeing those web visits at all-time highs in reaction to these price cuts tells us Tesla is creating basically a one-horse race and expanding the lead in the EV market, and now is just becoming a matter of time, we think, before it's just the dominant automotive company, period.
Tesla has cut prices on the Model 3 this year by 17% and on the Model Y by 26%. So for their price cuts to draw a 59% increase in website traffic seems like a pretty good return to me. Let's say you sell 10,000 vehicles, $5,000 profit for each vehicle. That's $50 million in profit. Now you cut your profit by 20%, so you're getting $4,000 for each vehicle, but your volume goes up by 59%. So you're selling 15,900 vehicles for $63 million profit. And there are now more vehicles on the road to draw software revenue from. It's a win-win.
But this idea of the razor blade model, do you see anything in that where they're not necessarily even seeing the car possibly as the driver of actual bottom line earnings, but rather all the things that you can add to it, all the technologies they're working on, and this becoming more of almost a software or service-like company in the long term?
Yeah, you can really feel that. I feel that as a Tesla owner. When you get into the car, every couple of weeks that's downloaded an update that makes your car even better at driving 79 miles an hour through traffic and going, off the exits at the right time and making the turns all on its own. And I just think to myself, if a company can pull off that with me, and my family sitting in the car and do that safely, then what can't they achieve from a software and artificial intelligence perspective. So I really think of Tesla as one of the biggest, greatest artificial intelligence plays there is. The computing power that they're amassing, the data that they're amassing, pretty much unrivaled among certainly any automotive companies. It could be unrivaled across the world, except for maybe Microsoft and Google.
I think what makes Tesla such a compelling AI play is the synergies that is being created and the cohesion among all of Musk's companies. X provides data that can train robots on social intelligence and catch them up on news in real time. Tesla provides data for robots to navigate the real world. SpaceX provides internet access to their robots anywhere in the world, and XAI will train large language models to be integrated into those robots. As we've learned in Musk's biography, Elon is quick to pull his top employees across his array of companies to help on whatever is the most pressing issue at any one of his companies. This is helping the synergy and cohesion and how these companies work together to start to form an ecosystem that is working towards products that are going to transform humanity forever. I mean, we're talking about the most influential products that are leveraging AI of all time, especially in Optimus Bot. Google and Microsoft, they just can't compete on that level.
I think your point is well taken. There's rumors, that Elon Musk may roll out a smartphone at some point. He's got the satellites in the sky. He owns the world's largest real-time, conversation network in Twitter or X. And so you kind of can see where this could go a lot of different directions. And you could see, a scenario where actually the car becomes that first hit that gets people into the ecosystem, much like Apple did with the iPhone. And then, Tesla, X, whatever you want to call it, all becomes one big software as a service play. I could totally see how that could happen, and I wouldn't bet against it in any way.
Neither would I, but this morning's report from Adam Jonas after he had lunch with all of his buddies is just talking about how there's not really much interest in Dojo or Tesla AI, and they think it's difficult to predict the event path and it's hard to measure. Well, yeah, it is. But you got to stop making conservative claims and start putting your money where your mouth is, because Adam Jonas has had some bullish reports recently. But do you guys see why I can reason to be all in on Tesla? The people that are managing everybody's in America's money, Wall Street, with all of their clients, they're too afraid to be wrong on Tesla, and that's creating a huge opportunity for guys like you and me. So, I'm just failing to see another company that's already profitable with a long-term horizon for growth like Tesla has. If you can show me one, well, then I'll be damned, but let's keep watching.
The drum I beat whenever we talk about Tesla is the pipeline, right? And Cathie Wood came out with a statement that is quite incredible. She said by 2027, their move into autonomous driving, right? They'll make more money from autonomous driving by 2027, not that far away, than they do from EVs, with margins of over 50%, Andy. Like I said, what would frighten me if I was ever a Tesla bear would be the pipeline and what's next and what's coming.
Yeah.
Like the robo-taxi, right? Which is supposed to dominate their earnings in the future, Andy.
Yeah, Tesla has showed no signs of slowing down their growth ambitions, and I think that's what is frustrating investors. Investors are ready to see Tesla be managed in a way similar to Apple in this past decade, where they're doing stock buybacks, they're advertising, and they're trying to squeeze out all the margins they can get from their hardware business. But Tesla just keeps pushing all of their chips back onto the table. Okay, now let's buy as much compute as we can. Okay, now let's get Optimus into production. No, Cybertruck's not good enough yet. We got to make it better. As long as Elon is CEO, there will be a maniacal sense of urgency at the company. He can only function to his 100% capacity when all of his chips are on the table.
As someone who uses the autonomous driving of Tesla all the time, I'm constantly having to turn it off in certain situations, certain weather conditions. It's making leaps and bounds of progress, but the idea that people will be getting into these without anybody in the driver's seat just a few years from now, I think is very aggressive and very optimistic. But I do think it will happen, and I think that the trajectory of the prediction is correct. And so you think about that, you think about the AI infrastructure that they're building, the computing power that they're building, the mapping technology. There's a lot of ways for this company to make money that don't rely on selling a car for more than it costs to produce. And they're even winning at that. And so I think from a long-term perspective, this is kind of one of those companies where I think the Tesla Q folks have folded and are out of the game at this point. I would at least hope.
Well, what better time than now to look at some of my favorite Tesla Q quotes over the years. The contrarian short says, "I'm going to dance on its grave, then take a leak on it, then dance some more. It's the biggest fraud I've ever seen." Winter is here says, "The Tesla Q after party is going to be legend." UFO Capital says, "Every Friday I ask myself the same question. Is today the day Tesla files bankruptcy and becomes Tesla Q?" Those historical moments were brought to us by the Short Shorts historian on Twitter. And now let's take a look at what the shorts should have known.
So one of the phrases I heard when I first got in this business is never fade a superstar. That doesn't stop at just trading or investing, goes to sports and everything. Yep. When you're looking at this, I think it's hard to not think of Elon Musk with that entrepreneurial mindset, that willing to disrupt, is anything other than a superstar at this point when it came to what they've created at Tesla. Is there any other company that's achieved this level of scale and size that still thinks that way on a daily basis? You said Apple. But Apple's still such a machine, and they're doing things so methodically, it doesn't feel like they're changing the world anymore. They just impact the world. Tesla seemingly is still changing and disrupting on a daily basis.
So I don't think that we've ever seen a company that got to these levels that still had that, inquisitive, optimistic, change the world type of founder mentality since we had Steve Jobs at Apple. I think that's the best analogy I can come up with.
Changing the world has growing pains, right? And and Tesla is so far ahead of everyone else. And I got one two-word example: charging stations, right? They are the clear leader, where now the legacy automakers are using Tesla to charge their electric vehicles.
Almost every automaker is now using NACS, Tesla Supercharger compatibility. And do you remember when the auto market was supposed to be extremely hard to enter because all of the auto companies cut their margins to be so razor thin that they only made money from repairs and from selling parts? Well, Tesla found a way to enter the industry, and now they have every single automaker on a leash. They are absolutely dominating with a 60% market share on EVs in the US. This was just a fantastic, super bullish and fun report from Andy Swan, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.